Hello, I'm Otto, and welcome back to Dyson Sphere program. So in the last episode, we continued working on our mall, and we have some PLS, ILS, and orbital collectors set up here. I completely forgot to set up a few things for the orbital collectors, so I did just go ahead and do that. We also haven't given it power, but I've set up the power network for it, so we just need to activate this. And I want to give a little bit of caution. Like, there are a lot of ILS in this area, and you definitely don't want to start powering all of them because this will start to really tank your power. You can see that we're probably 75 to 80% into our usage. Let's see, in the last episode, we also set up some builds over here for the thrusters, the reinforced thrusters, the drones, and the vessels. We're not going to turn this on. We're not going to activate this just yet because of our power concerns. And one of the ways, like, we have a lot to do, obviously. Like, the mid game is largely just kind of building up what we already have, scaling up what we need. And to kind of go along with that, we've already set up a few builds that have 2 ingredients and 1 ingredient. We have some gears over here. We have some magnetic coils over here, and we also set one up for circuits, and we also have a hydrogen fuel rod build here. So the next build that we need to work on is we need something for 3 ingredients. So there's a few items that we have that have 3 ingredients. One is the electric motors, and this is going to lead us into actually being able to place some turbines. The supermagnetic rings and the particle containers also have 3 ingredients, so this is going to cover a lot of that. The most important one, though, is going to be the deuteron fuel rods. So this is 3 ingredients. We have basically most of these automated. I mean, the supermagnetic rings and the titanium alloy is obviously like very low supply, but we do need to work towards getting the deuteron fuel. That is going to be the next step in power elevation, and we definitely need some power, especially coming up soon. So let's set up a build for 3 ingredients. So I'm lining this up with this, and we're going to go 5 blocks out. And again, I've recessed this back, so I've been referring to these as like hard lines and these as soft lines because they are dimmer and these are brighter. So we are kind of splitting that. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So for 3 ingredients, I like to start right in the middle. We're going to have a return line going into the ILS. And when we're setting up for different ingredients, obviously I like to have whatever the main item is up here, and we're going to set that to 0. The second slot I like to reserve for whichever one has the most items. So in this case, it is the first item, which is the iron plates. But in a different situation, like let's say with the deuteron fuel rod, the second item is the one that we have the most of, which is the deuterium. So I would put that in the first slot. But for now, we are going to work towards the electric motors. So the next up is gears, and then we need the magnetic rings, magnetic coils. These are all going to be requesting. All right, so the first ingredient is going to be on the outside here. That is the iron, or slot 2. And we're going to have another one on this side as well. So at this point, now we have an output and we have 1 input. So we need 2 more inputs. And we are going to... We already know that we can line this up near the end and set up 10 of these. So we're going to do that. We definitely need to leave some room back here. I like to have the power poles like right on the back of this. So we will end up having power poles probably back here with another set. So let's go ahead and add in this side. This is going to be an input. Then we will have an input over here, and then an output into the middle, and an output into the middle. And I like to recess these back a bit if I can, just in case I ever wanted to add proliferation. So we do have the option to add that in. Yes, that is extremely tight, but it is what it is. Okay, so we need 2 more ingredients on both sides. So we need whatever slot 3 is. here, and whatever slot 4 is here. And same goes for the other side. Slot 3 and slot 4.
Mineral depleted.
Now we can add another set of assembling machines. So these are going to both share the items here. And obviously I mentioned the spray coaters here, but we would not be able to put one here in the same spot. If we wanted to, we'd have to recess this and do some funky stuff, but I'm not too concerned because we are not going to be proliferating a lot of this. Actually, if I did make builds for proliferation, they would be a little bit different, but again, I'm not too concerned at the moment. So we're going to have an input here on slot 3 built into that one, slot 4 into this one, and then we need to cross over for both. We are going to have our slot 2 item coming in here. I like to have whatever has the most quantity is the belt that needs to be the closest to the assembling machines. And then we need a return for this one, which is going to go to the back. And then the same for the other side. This is slot 2 going right next to the assembling machines, and then a return line coming through the back. Inputs for these, getting both sides, and then we need an input here and an output here. And if you remember, I'm using the pile sorters for the outputs just because it kind of gives us like a little bit more of a buffer. And if there's ever a situation like maybe in the middle where your items are crafting a lot faster than your belt can manage, then the pile sorters are definitely a huge help with dealing with that. Alright, so now we just need to copy all of the recipes and the sorters. And lastly, we need some power. So I think right here is going to be fine, just inside this belt, and I like to go every 2 assembling machines for the power poles. Also, a good rule of thumb, like a good habit to get into, is just placing one next to the ILS or PLS that you have. It's not always necessary, but sometimes depending on where you place these, the kind of curvature of the world can cause some of these other power poles that you're placing to not give this coverage. So just giving one to the dedicated for the PLS or ILS in this case is highly recommended. Okay, so that is our motor build, and we would just copy this and create a new blueprint. And I have taken the liberty to use this as a template and went ahead and created some of these. So I have electric motors. I also set up for super magnetic rings and particle containers. This is all the same build. It's just following the rule of thumb of whichever one is the closest is going into slot 2. And has 4 belts in here, whereas the other 2 ingredients have 2 belts each. Alright, so let's bring some of this in. We're going to set this up for 2,000. And another good rule of thumb is whatever the quantity is that's needed for the recipe, I just tend to, like, we're going to do 2,000 for this, 1,000 for this, and 1,000 for this. About 1,000 per item. Obviously, that's not like, you know, it doesn't quite match up because the crafting speed for whatever items you're making are going to be different, but that's just kind of how I deal with things. And again, if you haven't seen some of the previous videos, the reason why I don't max these out is because we are going to be tearing down a lot of our old base soon, so it is in our benefit to be able to have somewhere to put these items. So whenever I'm setting up, for instance, here, for however much iron ore I might get whenever I tear things down. We want to have somewhere to put that. Same with the iron plates. It's just nice to have that little bit of extra space. Even in the late game, whenever I'm like 100% positive we're going to be placing these permanently and this is like forever going to be like this, we're not going to rip anything up, I always leave just a little bit of space on the ends just in case. You never really know. Okay, so that is going to be the motors. Let's check our power. Seems to be holding around 60%. So like I said, I did go ahead and set up for some other items: the electric motors, the super magnetic rings, particle containers, and the deuteron fuel rods. I also added in foundations. So the foundations is the exact same blueprint as the circuits, the magnetic coils, the plasma exciters, anything that needs more than one item, which was quite a few of these, or sorry, 2 items, which was quite a few of these: the exciters, the microcrystalline components, processors, hydrogen fuel rod, the photon combiner, and the titanium crystals. So I've just added that.
Mineral depleted.
Actually, I think we might as well just go ahead and drop the deuteron fuel rods. At least if we can get them going, then that will... Alright, so as I'm lining these up, the middle belt I'm aiming to be lined up with the ILS that's here. Since the build is very similar, you could try to line them up with the belts, but I'm aiming for, like, I'm trying where the... Let's just take a look right here. So obviously this needs to be centered on this line here. So whenever I'm aiming for these, I'm aiming for this middle belt, or, you know, if I had one belt over here and one belt over here, I'm aiming for whatever this middle slot is to line up with where we already have these placed. And then I'm also lining up for the middle belt here for this line. So that is kind of how I'm setting it up. You could also just go ahead and preemptively place the ILS. That is another option if you wanted to really make sure that you're getting them in the right positions. So this would come down and we would have one placed here and then one that splits the difference somewhere in here, right there. And then place the blueprints over the top. The downside of that is that the blueprints won't add in any of the, you know, the automatic drone and vessel placements. It won't add the ingredients here, and it would not connect the belts. So you would still need to connect the belts after. But either way is completely... It's totally up to you. Okay, so since this is going to take a while to craft, I'm also going to drop a blueprint for steel. So we do not have a steel build yet. We've got iron, copper, magnets. So I'm going to go ahead and drop the steel. And let's see, lining up with this PLS, I'm aiming for something like this. That is correct. Thankfully it has the foundation notification so that I can zoom in and check it first, but let's go ahead and drop that. Oh no. There. Why are you not? Oh, there's... Okay. Yep, sorry, oil. Bury that. Okay, that is lined up properly, and I also want to get a blueprint for the stone brick down. These are all items that we're going to need quite a few of soon. This one was a little bit easier to set up. I lined up... I knew these would need to go like right next to each other, like 0 space in between them. And that I just need to line these belts up. So that should have placed that in the correct position. We are good. And place foundations. Okay, so I'm going to get this set up and I will be back shortly. Okay, so we are back and I used my little buddies to help me place all this. So we should be at a point now. Yeah, we can probably safely turn these two on. So let's get this one set to 2000-ish, and same with this one. This one is probably going to be the most power hungry because it's going to be active for the longest amount of time. It'll be so much nicer later on when we upgrade and the capacity for the drones and the speed for the drones and the vessels is increased. That is a huge game changer. I think right now they can only move 50 items. Yeah, 50 items, and this one is 400. I forget how many of these get up to. I think it's maybe at least 100. I don't think it's quite 200. These get up to 2,000, so yeah. Alright, so it seems like these are working as intended. And like I've said before, like because of the because of the slower drone speed that we have at the moment, we are certainly not going to be able to keep these completely full. If we increase this to like 5,000, then we most certainly could, but until we increase the drone capacity and our power capacity for sure, this will just kind of slowly trickle into the backside, and then it will kind of buffer up a little bit, and then over time we will start working through some of this. Again, this is way more capacity than we need for a lot of the different items, but you know, we're trying to scale up, right? So at some point we will be consuming all of these. Well, maybe not the steel, but the for instance, iron plates and the copper plates for sure. All right, so let's look at this one. I don't think we have enough items to actually start requesting some of this in, but it would be nice to go ahead and start getting some. We definitely have the deuterium. So as a matter of fact, bringing this in, we're going to bring in quite a bit. So I'm going to request in 5,000 because our fractionator build over here is quite full. So now that will continue. And because this is now going to be dumping out hydrogen, it's crazy the way this game works. The hydrogen X-ray cracking over here is now going to activate, which is going to give us more graphite. The graphite is going to be moved over here to be burned off, which is going to activate a lot more of these thermal turbines over here, thermal power plants. And our power will be slightly boosted. It's going down. Oh, come on. Anyways, yeah, I'm not too concerned. Like I said, over time it will kind of work itself out. Alright, so I apparently did not set up any of the filters. That is fine. Let's just request in a small amount of these as well. Yeah, I would be surprised if we had any of the magnetic, super magnetic rings. Okay, so this is the same exact build that we had for the other one, so I can go ahead and set this one for deuterium. This is going to be the other two, slots 3 and 4. And then this is also going to be deuterium. If you were to use proliferation for any part of this build, this is the one thing that I would highly recommend is actually doing the input or the whatever's being output. So the actually I'm going to lower this just in case because I do want to get some proliferation at some point, and when we do, we are going to be requesting it in via a chest over here. Actually, you know what? We might as well just go ahead and set this up. So I'm going to add in a splitter. I don't think that we can set this in line with this. Maybe? Yeah, I didn't think so. So we're going to set this back. Here's fine. Put a chest on top, and then our logistics distributor. We have not seen this in a while, so we're going to be requesting in the Proliferator Mark III. And that would look something like that. Okay, so once we get that activated, we can then start proliferating some of this, which will certainly help a lot. All right, so let's continue working on the mall. So I think at some point, I don't think I mentioned this in the last episode, but I think at some point I am going to, like, once we get this like fully created, I'm going to go through and maybe be a little bit more thoughtful in how I'm placing the different items. Right now we're just kind of placing like whatever we need, but I would like to maybe organize it a little better. So I'm going to hold off on doing that until we're completely done, and then maybe reorganize some of this. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. So there's a couple of things. One, I mentioned how there are 4 items that require 5 different items, so we would not be able to have, we would have the main item and then 4 ingredients, but some of them need 5, and all of them have the supermagnetic rings in common. So anytime you have a build that has, let's say, a spare slot, in this case we do have one over here, and it has the supermagnetic rings, it's a good idea to leave a space open for one of those items that needs 5. So I don't think we have any of them unlocked at the moment. But those items were... Actually, let's just go ahead and unlock the ray receiver. So the ray receiver is 1. It has 5 ingredients. The miner is... The advanced mining machine has 5. What else? The particle container has 5, which we can actually go ahead and unlock now. And there was something in the military section. Nope. This. So that's the 4 items that I know of. The plasma turret, the particle collider, the advanced mining drill, and the ray receiver. So yeah, so we're going to leave this open for one of those. It's like I said, it's really up to you what you want. It maybe makes a little sense for this to be the advanced mining drill, so we could, for instance, put the normal miner over here just to kind of keep them paired up. Where did that go? Here? And unfortunately, we do not have the option to start to set the recipes early. Alright, so that's what that would look like. And because I'm going to be making the fusion generator soon, mini fusion power plant, this one also has a supermagnetic ring. So we could definitely use this in... with the same situation. So we could leave this one open for an item that has 5 ingredients, and this one open for an item that has 5 ingredients. And just to make sure that I can remember that, we're going to set this here and go ahead and set up the mini fusion. Actually, you know what? Let's just go ahead and set this up, because this is going to be one of the most important next steps. There's a lot of important next steps, but at least as far as ramping up goes, this one is probably the most important. Okay, so we have 4 items. we're just going to go in order. So the titanium alloy, the super magnetic rings, the carbon nanotubes, which we have not created yet. We're going to be making these in the next episode. Processors. And we're going to just bring in a very small amount of each. There, so we have 2 of them. At least in some. This one is decently automated. This one is fine. So that is alloy. This one is the supermagnetic rings. This one is carbon nanotube. And then we can have the processors come in from over here. And then we would output this into a chest. So let's get that set up. And whatever kind of buffer that we wanted. Let's say, just 1 stack is fine. These stack up to, I believe, 50. So that is going to be lots. 100 in the ILS and then 50 here as a backup. That is plenty. Okay, so another one that I want to set up before we take off is the the power poles. So I'm going to have 3 of these out in the middle. This one is going to be the regular power poles. This one is going to be the wireless, and this one is going to be the satellite substations. We do not have a build for this yet. It is a 3-ingredient assembling machine build, so this is basically just going to be the same thing as the one that we just created. So I haven't made a build for this yet, but I will be making a build for this off screen. And then this one needs the carbon nanotubes, and like I said, we're going to be doing carbon nanotubes in the next episode. So along with a couple of other builds for chemical plants, hopefully. I'm hoping that we can bang off at least 2, 3, maybe 4, but we'll see. Okay, so this is going to be easy enough. We have the Tesla towers, which needs iron and the magnetic coils. And I'm not going to add in the wireless power tower on this side, but I am going to add its ingredients. So the plasma exciter, and then this will be the substation, which needs the super magnetic rings and the framing material. And then we're going to add in the Tesla tower over here. So this one's a little funky, so there won't be too many situations where we will need to send some of these back to create some of these, but we still want to have the, okay, maybe I actually do want to do this different. Tell you what, we can't have both, because if I have this one, let's say requesting in, and then I have another one over here that is kind of providing, then they're just going to go back and forth between each other, and I'm not too concerned with dealing with that. Anyways, let's just go ahead and get this set up. So this is, let's say, slot 1. Slot 2. Each of these will have their own chest for storing the buffer. yeah, there won't be too many situations where we send any of these back. So I'm really debating whether or not I even want to have a return line here. But we'll do it either way. Yeah, we're gonna have this. We're gonna leave it like we had it. So this is gonna go in over here, and just in case, for whatever reason, I am gonna have a return line for this. What else did this need? The rings. These are all outputting on the V-spelts. And what else did this need? This needed the framing material. And then possibly a return line for this. Since we don't have these substations, let's get some power down here. Let's make it somewhat symmetrical. These are also going to cover here. Okay, can we start to add more of the PLS, or sorry, the ILS into our power grid? Maybe. Okay, you know what? I'm actually not too worried about it. I am going to set some of these up off screen, so I will probably just continue on in this direction. So I have these set up. I can't remember. Did we set up for... Okay, we did not. We did not set up for assembling machines. So that is... You know what? Let's just real quick before we take off. I do want to do that one real quick, and we're going to do that over here. Ideally, I probably... Yeah, ignore that one. Ideally, I probably would have had it set up right here, actually. Yeah. I know we have the super magnetic ring on this build over here, but we will have more opportunities later. So, let's just quickly set this up. So we're going to have... This is going to be assembling machine Mark 1 with 3 ingredients. And the circuits. And then yep, that is good enough. So the assembling machine actually has 4 different versions, but we're only going to be putting 3 in here. So we're going to have the Mark 1, the Mark 2, and then this one. This one will be the Mark 3 once it becomes available to us. We need purple science, I believe. That is this guy over here. So the ingredients are the broadband part. What is that called? The particle broadband. Let's go ahead and activate that one as well. And I think we can then do unlock the purple science. And then it also needs quantum chips, which are down here. That is purple science, so I'm not too concerned. A lot of production chain going into this one as well. Okay, so let's see, this one needs... Let's just do... We're going to have to split these items, because if we had... Let's say this one is over here. This needs graphene and processors. We wouldn't have room for the other items, so we are going to have to at least do one of the ingredients over here. Graphene. Where's the processors? Over here. And then this one would be the Mark III, and then the Mark III, the particle broadband, and the last one, the quantum processor. So that would be all of the items here. This needs 3 items, so let's do one in the middle. Gears on this side and the circuit boards on this side. And definitely a return line for this going into feeding this one. And then we had graphene over here. This one would be, let's say, the particle broadband, which would be in slot 4. This one would be the quantum computer or the quantum chip in slot 5. And then we would need a return line for this. And the processor would come out over here for this one. As for buffering these, we would probably just do 1 stack for this one, obviously. For this machine, as long as this one's current, then we could buffer it a little bit more. But once we get to the point where we are going to the last one, let's say that we would buffer this one at least 5, maybe 10 stacks. And then power, and yeah, we can go ahead and get this one activated. This is definitely only going to be 100, and we would probably want to, let's say, remote receive. No, we don't have too many of these off-world, do we? Okay, I'm not worried about it. We'll probably just place a lot of these in by hand. We can at least do the local receive. Not that it matters, so like we're not, okay. Let's ignore that. And if you ever find that these are not enough, and it very well may be the case, we might have, preferred 500 of each instead. The graphene, as an example, we need 8 of these to craft one of these, if I remember right, and that's a 3-second craft. So you might even want to just go ahead and get some extras for stuff like this. If it's ever not enough, you could always just add in more. It's really not that big of a deal. I did set this one to 200 because once it gets to the point where we want to start requesting these off-world, maybe even 300 or 400, like you generally want a lot. So whatever items that you have, or like whatever quantity that you have set in the ILS, that's your delivery amount. So you want to be able to make sure that you have like an inventory capacity for whatever this is, and you can also always add them onto your list over here. It eventually gets to the point where we can have like, I think like 500 of these, like 10 extra stacks just stored into one slot. And we open up a few more inventory slots here and another row of these over here, if I remember right. Anyways, so we are now in a very good spot. I think we have all of these ingredients available for the most part. This one is not completely fully automated, but that's another one that I hope to kind of accomplish in the next episode. So, what did I miss? Did I miss? Oh, no outputs. And I also didn't add in that. I know it's a little goofy having this out into here and then wrap back around into here, but you know what? It is what it is. At some point, we want to just be able to take whatever inventory we have of this one and just dump it in here and have it work. Anyways, another longer episode. That is going to be it for me. So in the next episode, we are going to be making some chemical plant builds. We're going to use largely the same lengths that we used for the smelting. So for the builds, we will use this entire section rather than like half sections like we did with the assembling machines. And we largely only did that. Like a lot of these builds could actually be a full build if we really wanted, but again, I wanted to have this be as easy to follow as possible, so anytime we could reuse a blueprint or make a blueprint that was reusable between multiple different builds, that is definitely preferable. It certainly wouldn't have been the case for some of these, like having the magnetic ring or magnetic coils and the circuit boards. These craft very fast, so having a like large build that is kind of like this size, is it possible? Yes. It's just not as easy to follow, so that's kind of why I made the decision to make these little half builds, was largely based on pretty much these two builds. And I very well could have had these two be completely separate from each other and just every time I dropped one, drop the other one and have them be paired up in a section like this. But you know what? I like this. This is perfectly fine. So in the next episode, we are going to, like I said, start setting up some chemical plant builds. We are going to make some builds for, we're gonna set one up for fire ice. I might hold off on that one, but I have a fire ice build, which is a very unique build because it has 1 ingredient in and 2 ingredients out. We also need to set up for what else? Even though we're going to be getting graphene from fire ice and hydrogen from fire ice, I am going to set up a graphene build, and for graphene we need sulfuric acid. Sulfuric acid is another one of those things where it's a complete pain in the butt to build. The build for 3 ingredients with chemical plants is kind of annoying, but it is what it is. And we also have the eventual ability to kind of like mine this up just raw. So there are acidic oceans out there, sulfuric acid oceans out there that we can just literally tap a water pump and grab the sulfuric acid. So this is kind of one of those builds where, yeah, we're going to do it, but it's eventually going to be obsolete. Same with the organic crystals. This is a 3 ingredient item, which would use the same blueprint as the sulfuric acid. And the carbon nanotubes is another one that we absolutely need to make this one in the next episode. So this is a 2 ingredient item. The plastic is a 2 ingredient item. And yeah, so we have a couple of those coming up in the next episode. So I will see you then, and thanks for watching.